Hey guys, Frightener22 here, and I know it's been a while, but I'm happy to welcome you back to a new installment of Saturday Night Movie Drive-In. This week we're going to be taking a look at a really interesting film brought to you by Roger Corman, world-renowned producer behind many classics such as Rock and Roll High School, Death Race 2000, Galaxy of Terror, Humanoids from the Deep. The list goes on and on with Roger. But the film that we're actually going to be taking a look at today was the first film that was released part of the Roger Corman Cult Classics line brought courtesy by Shout Factory. And the film we're going to be taking a look at is actually 1983's Suburbia. Now, this film is actually a really interesting character study on the punk scene in Los Angeles in the early 1980s, and is actually written and directed by Penelope Spheeris. And Penelope Spheeris is an interesting director because she's obviously a woman, and I just really like seeing women directors take hold of projects, especially when the Hollywood industry is so male-dominated, especially in the directing field. So it's really cool to get like a woman's perspective on things. And Penelope Spheeris is actually one of the most interesting female directors to come out of that time period, and in general, particularly. Now, it's no secret that Penelope Spheeris has always been really vocal about her career and how she more or less has like two distinctive career paths. One of them being where she focuses really heavily on documentaries about the punk scene or hard rock scene, or just really, low-budget, seedy films that have to do with, maybe the punk scene or rebellious outsiders, like, of course, the Decline of Western Civilization documentaries, The Boys Next Door, Hollywood Vice Squad, and Dudes. But then she also has a career as a director where she did a lot of mainstream and really profitable films, such as Wayne's World, Black Sheep, and the Little Rascals film adaptation, believe it or not. So she's a really diverse and unique director, but 1983's Suburbia is an incredibly interesting thing because obviously she grew up, filming and absorbing this 1980s, punk culture in LA, and it's just really wonderful because I really think that she captures that culture and that time period so well in this film. Now, Suburbia focuses on Evan and his younger brother, and you learn really early on in the film that they're really unhappy at home at the hands of their alcoholic mother, so Evan decides to just bail out and run away from home, and he meets up and falls in with a crowd known as the Rejected, a group of punks that kind of all squat together at an abandoned house off the side of the highway. So he falls in line with them, and since everybody in this, punk group don't really have any family life or, has a really unstable or, disturbing background, they all kind of fall in line with each other and find that they are, the only true family they've ever had. So it's really interesting to kind of see a really realistic thing that was going on, in the early 80s in LA. A lot of teenage runaways, the punk scene was really, at its peak at that time in our culture. So, it's just really cool to get that vibe, and I think it comes across so realistic, and I think that's in part due to the fact that Penelope Spheeris didn't really cast, with the exception of two actors, Evan being one of them, but the exception of two actors, she casted just regular kids that just fit the part, just regular, real punk kids, and I think that really comes through in the performances on all of them. And I mean, it's really hard to cast a kid, based on their physical status, and then when you put the camera on them, just be like, oh, we'll just act natural. I just feel like, in a lot of kids' heads, they don't really know how to act natural and just be themselves when they're told to. But these kids, although they don't have, obviously, the greatest acting chops, you really get this real sense of, reality and, real natural state that comes through with them, because these kids, after all, they were real punks. They were living and breathing the scene at the time. So I thought that was a really genius casting call on Penelope Spheeris' part. This film just packs a really tough punch. I mean, this is a film straight from the gate. As I had stated before, the film establishes itself focusing not only on Evan's, broken home, but also there's another teenage runaway that the film focuses on even before we get to Evan, and she's hitchhiking on the side of the highway, as many teens have done in LA and still do to this day, and she's hitchhiking, and a woman and her baby pick her up, and it isn't long before they get a flat tire and they pull over to use a payphone, and you see these ravenous dogs just kind of swarming down these dark hills, and it's really creepy, and these dogs are, just mean-spirited dogs. I mean, they're just as fucked up as, anything Cujo could have done to his victims. But, yeah, they're really fucked up. And I don't want to give it away because the opening scene of this film just packs a punch and just makes a statement that's so strong that just tells the viewer, we are not fucking around in this film, and it's fantastic, dude. I mean, it totally just, perked my senses up, and I was like, whoa, I'm into this movie now. Like, that just grabbed me by the balls, and, like I said, I don't want to give it away because I think that it's such an impactful scene. It just makes such a statement considering the subject matter that was presented in this film, so it's really, really cool. But, back to the plot again. So, obviously, once Evan leaves home and meets up with, the group known as TR, the Rejected, it just pretty much goes through everything that they do to kind of make it on their own, whether it be, of course, going through Suburbia and trying to find open garages so that they could steal food from people's refrigerators, or going to garage sales and just causing problems, or, going to punk clubs, of which there are actually 3 real punk acts in the film, some, really underground punk bands that were around during, the early 80s during Los Angeles. None of them I had ever heard of before the film. But, you do see that. You really get to see them in a club doing the whole mosh pit scene. So it's really realistic, and it comes across because everybody in these scenes are real punk kids, so it's excellent. In addition to that, while they're just kind of trying to make a living, there's a group of parents in the neighborhood called the Citizens Against Crime. How catchy, because I never would have imagined that, citizens, wouldn't be against crime. But nonetheless, these redneck, hicky, adults just really have it in for the Rejected. So they're, constantly threatening them, and it's just kind of like a war between them, which is really, really dope. But, the film really gets to a climax when, the girl that was hitchhiking in the original, Sheila, who meets up with the Rejected, she, commits suicide as, all the kids are squatting in this one house. So it really comes to a head when they, deliver the body of Sheila back to her parents in hopes to get, a proper burial, because these kids, they just simply didn't know what to do with the body, and, everything's kind of blown out of proportion, and people don't want them there, although they're just trying to pay their respects to their dear friend. So it isn't before long that, stories kind of get, mixed up, and people are all around, the community are being told that these kids just raided this funeral and, caused a disaster and started a fight. So now the Citizens Against Crime Committee go out to seek revenge against them, quite literally, and they barge in on these kids late at night, and, the film in the final act just really takes on this big climax where it's, the true war between punks and, these redneck suburbanites come to a head, and it's really, really fantastic. The ending scene is just as fucking impactful and kick-ass as the opening scene, and it's just one of those films particularly that I think just grabs you by the nuts from the beginning all the way to the end. And the interesting thing about this is that, by the looks of it, you guys would probably think, oh, obviously I'm a huge Ramones fan, they're my favorite, they're my favorite band, and you would think I'm a big lover of punk music, but it's interesting to note, I actually hate punk music. I don't really like punk. I like the Clash a little bit, like Sex Pistols, and of course the Ramones being my favorite band doesn't really help support my case, but I don't really have much love for punk music, but it's always, it's really fascinating to me that the whole punk culture has always really interested me, and I just love it. I mean, I love the Decline of Western Civilization documentaries, I love this movie, so just, I love Sid and Nancy. There's just so much about the culture of punk that I'm so interested in reading about and watching documentaries about, and of course, stumbling upon this excellent, probably the best punk-sploitation movie, if you will. I'm just absorbed by it. It's just so friggin' great seeing this film. It's just, you know, it just blows my mind away just really seeing these true punk kids. And it's interesting to note, actually, one of the punk kids is actually Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers before he really made a bigger leap in acting. But before that, he was just a regular punk kid, and he just coincidentally got casted in this movie. So it's really cool to see Flea, who, you know, went on to such bigger and better things with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, seeing him, you know, weird in this, you know, little punk-sploitation movie, and he's just walking around the whole movie with like a giant rat crawling on his face and hanging in his mouth and stuff. So it's really, you know, wild and oddball, but I can't really stress enough to see this film. And it's interesting that early on in the review I mentioned that this is brought to you by Roger Corman, and it's funny because out of all the films, I mean, I'm a huge Corman supporter. I love all of the Corman films. But this is the one film out of everything that I really can say that there's a lot of melodrama going into it. It's very compassionate, and it's a very realistic and interesting character study, and not just, you know, the punk scene in general, but just like the characters in this film. I just thought that, like, you know, you don't really get that kind of honesty and, you know, integrity in any of the Corman films. I mean, they were low-budget, science fiction, horror, exploitation films, but Suburbia is a real true exception to any of the other Corman films that most people are used to or know about, and Suburbia should really be taken a lot more seriously than most Corman films. Just because you hear Corman's name attached to it, I hope that, you know, that just intrigues you a little bit more to see, because Corman is the man, but that might hurt people's opinion, you know, or hurt people's, you know, urge to go see it, and they think it might just be some schlocky little low-budget thing, and it is low-budget, but, you know, like I said, it's just made with so much honesty and, you know, brutality, and it's just so intense. Just these kids really bring this punk scene alive, and, you know, Penelope Spheeris' you know, writing and direction really brings this movie, you know, home for me at least. It really just packed a real solid punch. So I can't really stress enough to, you know, check out this 1983 Diamond in the Rough. It's a really solid film. So I hope that thanks to my review, more people know about this film and go out and see it. Like I had mentioned, Shout Factory put this out, I believe, in May of '09, and it's a little bit of an unsung film because it was the first one that was released part of Shout Factory's Roger Corman Cult Classics line, but, you know, go back in the catalog to the beginning and absolutely check this flick out, because I can't really see many people being too disappointed about it, especially if you're, you know, a lover of the punk culture or Roger Corman films. This is a film that certainly should not be missed. It kicks total fucking ass. Well, as always, guys, I appreciate everybody for tuning in to Saturday Night Movie Drive-In, and I'll catch you guys next time with a new episode. This has been Frightener22. Thanks again.